In this town, there are 4 families that think it's time travel. They have more in common than they realize. As well as a family, there are the Tannhaus, the Dopplers, the Nielsens, and the Kvienwalds. Plus, there's another key thing I should mention before we get started. There are 5 different time periods in the show. Each 33 and 5 1921, 1953, 54. 1986, 87, 2019, 2020. With all that said, we can begin. In these time periods, Adam Hughes faces disfigurement due to extensive time travel. He is living in a timeline he wants to control events in each of the different time periods to trigger the apocalypse. Adam is also the leader of Sic Mundus, a time-traveling secret society created in 1921. He has many subordinates who do his dirty work. His main stage is Noah. When Noah was young, he dug the cave that would allow them to time travel and, while he was doing this, he killed one of his friends he wants to rebel against. Yeah, Noah is ruthless and very loyal to his boss. Fiona Canvote from 2019 accidentally arrives in this time period. She was trying to return to her own time period in the future but instead ended up in 1921. She's mistaken for a soldier and welcomed into the home of young Noah. Noah's sister is seemingly Agnes Nielsen, who will become another key player. And of Sic Mundus is time travel. Later on in the series, Agnes is, of course, the great-grandmother of Mikkel, the boy who goes missing in 2019. But we'll talk about this family connection. Young Jonas takes the onus to chat, where Jonas realizes that he and Adam are the same person and that Adam intends to reach the 3rd cycle in 33 years. As provoking the apocalypse, Adam tells us that the only way to stop this from happening is to travel back to the day before his father killed himself, which is what triggered the whole chain of events. And, seeing as the onus is a good guy, he believes him. So Jonas travels back to 2019 to try and stop his father from killing himself. And we say goodbye to 1921. The events of this year all happen in 1 week from the 5th to the 12th of November. And this time period, we see H.G. Tannhaus planning the construction of a nuclear power plant. We have Ulrich, Marta, and an elderly version of Robin in 2019, shot mysterious notes that nobody understands. This was you. This is the same Helge who had his face destroyed by Ulrich Nielsen from 2019 and the same Helge who will go on to become Noah's right-hand man. But let's take things in chronological order. Hal for 1986, travels in time and takes Eric Obendorf's body back to 1986. 4 days later, he brings back Yassine Friese's body to both went missing in 2019 and then appeared in the mysterious Blue Room in 1986, tied to a chair which is actually an old-fashioned time-traveling device. Let's just say that the chair doesn't work out very well and ends up killing both boys. They have the same wounds. Scorched eyes and ruptured eardrums. They also both appear on top of the mound of earth where construction of the nuclear power plant will begin on the 10th of November 1953. The young Helge sees both bodies and the police inspecting the scene. Ulrich from 2019 travels to this day looking for his son Mikkel but instead bumps into young Jonas, his father. And as if that wasn't enough, he only just arrived in Winden that very day with his mother Agnes. Ulrich is very confused and goes to ask the watchmaker, H.G. Tannhaus, about the book he wrote on time travel. He leaves his key and his mobile phone. Then he goes to Doppler's cabin and, as we mentioned previously, tries to kill the young Helge in order to change the future and prevent that his parents, Bartosz and Martha, from happening. Ulrich hits him over the head with a rock, which leaves half of his face disfigured but Helge doesn't die. Ulrich takes them to the bunker. Helge disappears from his time period that same night. Claudia Tiedemann gives the watchmaker the designs for a time machine which will work much better than the chair from 1986. You'll soon see. So certain this is that we have to do a lot of. And, fearing that Claudia's father is the town's police never hear, Clausen accuses him of murdering the 2 boys he came from the future as well as Helge, who is still missing. Meanwhile, Helge awakens in the family's den. Following the blows to his hands, a time portal opens up in the bunker from which he can see young Jonas from 2019 trapped in the Blue Room in 1986, which is, in fact, the same bunker. They touched you 2 people and Helge from 1953 is transported to the bunker in 1986. From the 23rd to the 26th of June this year, we see the mysterious return young Helge. Noah had explained to him in 1986 that when he was older, he would help Noah. He warned him not to tell anyone about there and then sent him back to his findings. Agnes Nielsen is recently divorced and lives with her son, Trond, in the Tannhaus house. Oh, and Agnes begins a secret love affair with Doris Tiedman, Claudia Tiedman's mother. So, at this point, we know that Agnes is Tronte's mother. Trond is Ulrich's father, and Mikkel is Mads Nielsen. But let's get back to the story. Old Claudia from 2019, who appears from time to time in the different time periods, warns Agnes that she has to stop her brother, Noah, from trying to reach the doll cycle and thus triggering the apocalypse. Podesta, Stahl, Blender, now. And just like those, a dimension. Have I heard that him? This same Claudia then goes to see her father, Egan, at the police station to apologize for all the bad things that are going to happen to him. As expected, Egan has no idea what she's talking about, and Claudia goes out into the forest and is met by young Helge, who finally wants to open up about his disappearance but has been doing wrong almost all of his life, and thus tells Egan the all Claudia is the source of the real evil and started it all. Or whatever it was that Noah clearly asked him to say. Egan is very confused. He suspects that he's not been told the truth and now questions whether Ulrich is really to blame. An explosion at Winden's nuclear power plant in the summer of 1986 opens up a wormhole that connects to the Winden of 1921, 1953, 1986, and 2019. On the night of October, Mads Nielsen's brother, Ulrich, goes missing. We know that Helge from that year was the one who kidnapped him and took him to them. On the night of the 4th of November, Helge travels to 2019 and steals Mads. He also sends 2019 using the defective time machine they had, which causes his dad. The next day, Eric sends to 1953, the same time. Meanwhile, Mikkel from 2019 comes out of the cave and arrives in this time period. He realizes that he's traveled across time and meets the nurse in his camp. He later decides to adopt him. Jonas from 2052 appears in this time period to have a chat with the watchmaker, H.G. Tannhaus, about wormholes and time travel. Helge gets Claudius and the watchmaker's book as a present from Helge, and the power plant deactivates. A few days later, Jonas from 2052 returns with the watchmaker, said he can repair his time machine, which is the same as the watchmaker started building based on the signs that Claudius gave him. In this time period, we also see Yasin from 2019 time traveling using Vikram's caves, where he ends up while looking for Mikkel. When Yasin in 2019 sees Mikkel from afar in 1986, Yasin from 2052 appears behind him and asks him where he needs to go. For some width, do we could get to next and calcify? Don't know. 59. That thought, no, that ain't what she has. We still don't know why. But this enigma will be resolved in 2019 because Yasin from 29 doesn't understand what's going on, so he keeps trying to bring Mikkel back, but Noah and Helge from 1986 stop him. Then Yasin wakes up to find himself locked in the bunker from outside. Yasin from 2056 tries to free him, goes to the caves to find a way back. In the meantime, a time portal opens up in the bunker, which is the one we mentioned in 1953. Which sends young Helge back to this time period with the other Jonas in 2052. Poor Egan is now locked in a psychiatric hospital. Agon, who is now a retired police officer, works out that the man he arrested in 1953 is actually a time traveler. He was indeed looking for his son. Perhaps to clear his conscience, Agon goes to the psychiatric hospital and shows Ulrich a photo of Mikkel who has just arrived in 2019. As he would imagine, Ulrich gets very angry. Meanwhile, old Claudia visits young Claudia from this time period to tell her about time travel and the role she'll have to play. She also tells her that 33 years ago, she buried one of the time machines in her garden so that she would be able to use it. So Claudia travels to 2019 and finds out, amongst other things, that her father, Agon, is going to die on the 26th of June 1987. Agon and Claudia don't go well, and Claudia feels bad about this. So she decides to spend the day with him, without realizing that in doing so, she is sealing Agon's destiny. While they're arguing in the kitchen, she pushes him. Agon hits his head and dies. Rest in peace, Agon Tiedman. On the 28th of June, young Jonas from 2019 arrives in this time period, but before his father, Mikkel, kills himself, he believes that if he manages to stop this event just like Adam told him, that will stop any more cycles of 33 years and thus prevent the apocalypse. Jonas and his father talk about the subject, but Mikkel didn't have the intention of killing himself. He only gets the idea in his head. After a chat with Jonas, it's here that we realize that the person responsible for all the misfortune to come is Jonas, and that he's ended up just another one of Adam's puppets. The following day, Mikkel kills himself and leaves a letter for his son. It should be opened on the 4th of November 2019 at 10:30 p.m. In the scene, we are once again reminded that it's not possible. They changed the future and done because by attempting to characters are actually writing it. During that time period, we also realize that Mikkel is in fact Nico, the boy who traveled to 1986 and here in 2019 as well as an older Jonas and Ulrich. You find out that he is his father. Sadly, this means that Martha Nielsen, the girl who Jonas is in love with, is in fact his aunt because she's Mikkel's oldest sister. Next, we jump to the 4th of November, the day when old Helga begins shouting, "It will happen again." That day, at 10:30 p.m., was. The Nice read the letter from an adult Mikkel who goes into the cave that will transport him to 1986. Helga's son, Peter Doppler, discovers Mads's body and searches for answers alongside Trond Nielsen. Oh, Claudia Tiedemann appears and gives them a notebook that explains all events, past, present, and future. Ulrich from 2019 travels to this day looking for his son Mikkel, but in the end, Elizabeth doesn't let him die and he manages to escape. We also know that the God particle can be found in the ruins of the power plant and that Elizabeth and her group kill anyone who tries to enter the ruins. Yasin from 2019 manages to survive on his own in this time period. One day, he goes into the power plant. He's got that it's unstable and he needs more electricity to be able to stabilize and time travel. He finally manages to start it up, but instead of being transported 2019, was taken to 1921. Elizabeth also goes into the power plant, and while the members of Sic Mundus from 1921 access to be stabilized or the wormhole, Elizabeth, as Charlotte, her mother, and they touch hands.